So there's a pretty common problem with these old Fords. 100 billion of these trucks on the road, and if it's still out there by now, it's got a whole lot of time and hours on it. And if you have this problem, the truck will run and just kind of quit. You can't figure it out. There's a real good chance that the switch, let me put the key back in here. There's a real good chance, see this rod? Watch, when I roll the key, that rod right there engages a slide switch. It's on top of the steering column. And that switch is prone to wear out, crack open, and all kinds of other stuff. Right there, up on the top of the column, you got to pull 2 bolts. One right there, and one on the other side, and the panel here. And then the column will drop down. So let me do that right now. Okay, so there's your column. There's this little cradle. It's not this row of bolts, but it's up in the corner. Back up for a second, let's see. Same on the sides there. That's your bolts. Pull them out. Alright, so there's your column down. Here's that push-pull rod. It comes out of, it's probably a pinion gear or something in the box cylinder. Probably pulls a rack, drags that up, and pulls on a switch right here. And if you'll notice, these switches come loose. Whoops, there we go. You're supposed to do that. See? Now there's all your slide stuff. And if that contact here, and be careful because that's got a live power. That contact here, don't slide on, stay in contact with the copper wiper on here. What you get is a loss of power to your ignition coil. And then the truck's going to stall out randomly. And you can chase your tail. You'll think it's that. You'll think it's this dang computer module thing. People will blame this all the time, or something in your distributor or whatever else. But it'll be power to that coil, and of course it's intermittent, so it never holds still. So you can't troubleshoot it. It drives you insane, and you end up scrapping the truck or whatever else. That part is probably some Chinese, NGK. It says NGK spark plugs on the side of it. WVE part 1S6162 ignition starter switch from Rock Auto. It's like $8 or $10. So let's change it out. So here's a comparison. New switch, an old switch that popped apart, and that'll show you what's in there. You got this slide block, spring loaded. It pulls around this way with that rod, which engages different components on that top piece, and it'll either wear out or it'll actually separate a little bit from the spring pressure, from the tension of this piece pushing up into that piece. In time, it'll pop open, and you'll have an intermittent contact in your coil. So change it out. And another thing I wanted to point out about these switches, they've got a detent mechanism. So this little copper sliding contact block, right there, you got a pocket for a spring and a BB. And I lost it, but mine was down rolling around inside of here. So as soon as that connector cap is allowed to lift up, even the first time, when you go to try to put it back together, if that BB falls out, it's no longer going to detent in the right position. It's not going to want to hold. It's going to want to drift out of position and lose contact even more. So it's just one more reason that if you suspect this thing, just change it. I mean, it's really like a wear item. If you've changed 3 distributor caps, then you should probably change this thing by now. For the money, for $10, why not? So I got the new one bolted up in there, and just before you put your column back up, try your ignition. You can't see it now. I'll show you on the old one. There's slide tabs, And obviously on this one it was advanced all the way toward the lock cylinder, which is what I found that I needed to do with the replacement. If you put it in the middle and cinch it down, the key won't slide far enough. So you've got to, at least on mine, I had to advance all the way up. There's a little hole in the bottom. That rod that you just saw has a, it just sits, that rod just dogs in to one of these little tabs here. Pretty simple. It'll go pretty easy for you. Nothing to be scared of. But it just dogs in there, and you slide that block up and cinch it down. Double check before you put your column back up that your key, engages the starter at the normal point, and then just lift your column back up. Bend this a little bit out of the way, that fascia bracket there, dash plastic, bend that over a little bit, make sure you don't pinch your wires, and kind of fish that up, and then you just put your 2 bolts back in. There's these vertical oriented 9/16 heads. Zip those up in there and you're all set.